Welcome to my video on the current 2026 movie Ready or Not. Here I come. So the video will start with a review that's only going to spoil the first movie. It is very, very difficult to talk about this movie without spoiling the first one. And this movie spoils the first movie quite early anyway. You know what? Hypothetically, let's say you haven't watched either of these, you just heard about this one, you're like, should I watch the first one? Yes, watch the first one first, then watch this one. If you like the first one, you'll like this one. I will get into more detail, but in order to do so, I'm going to have to spoil that movie. Anyway, once I've done the review, that's only going to have spoilers for this movie, for the first movie, then I get into what I call the thoughts section, which is also going to spoil this movie. Can you tell I'm excited about this movie? This movie's rated R, so this video will be. There will be swearing, and I will describe some of the, especially in the thoughts section, not so much in the before, but I will describe some of the most fucked up stuff of it. Yeah, I guess I already said I fucking love it. Let's fucking go. Jesus Christ. Okay, so, have I been looking forward to a sequel to the first Ready or Not for 7 fucking years? No, not exactly, because I only watched it somewhat more recently. I watched it when Radio Silent made their first of the Scream movies, so, you know, the 5th Scream movie. And honestly, for a while, I wasn't sure, I wasn't sure they were going to make a sequel to this. And then I heard about it, and I was like, is that going to be able to, how can they make that work? Then I watched the fucking trailers, and I was like, okay, you know what? This looks amazing. And yeah, what can I say? There are now 4 Radio Silent movies that I love, and it's the 4 I watched. Honestly, you know what? At this point, I might actually fucking go back and watch some of their older, because some of it just doesn't have the best reviews. I think I'm gonna be super selective, but I like to watch more of their yeah. Anyway, I think I want to address some of the, so right, if you haven't already watched, Tyler Calvert's review of this was great. I'm gonna try not to repeat what he said. I agree with, you know, he made the point that the rule stuff perhaps is a little bit excessive. Yeah. Anyway, as far as sequels, you know, so it is very difficult to make a sequel to the sort of thing that you know, because the first Ready or Not was not really what people were expecting, you know, for various reasons, and this one obviously lacks the freshness. Like, by definition, it was simply impossible. It would not be. Hypothetically, if they'd made a spiritual successor instead of a sequel, maybe. Which is why, you know, I'm really, really glad that their Scream movies don't feel like just Ready or Not again, even though it's not really a spoiler to say there's perhaps a tiny bit of cast overlap. But other than, you know, the freshness, and I wouldn't exactly call this stale either, other than that, everything that was popular in the first Ready or Not, they seek to replicate and escalate in this one. And for the most part, I would say it is successful. There were a very small number of times where it did feel a tiny bit like, okay, they just have a fucking checklist. Like, this, people, you know, people like this in the first, we gotta put it in this one. I would say they definitely made efforts to make sure that it felt earned rather than just, hey, remember this? And there were reasons for some of the things being similar, same, or extra, you know, and I think that's about what I can say without spoiling this movie. So I don't think that they're going to make more in this series, and I mean, yeah, I think I'll expand on that in the thought section when we get there. But I guess that does pretty much cover the entire preamble. So yeah, the writing. I don't want to give away exactly what, like, if you've watched at least one trailer, you have some idea of what goes on here and how it differs from the first. I'm not going to spoil it. I will just say I'm glad that they didn't try to, like, I'm on the record as, listen, there was a time where the sequel that is just the first movie again was like, what else are they gonna do kind of thing. 80s and 90s had a bunch of those. I don't think we need those anymore unless you're doing something interesting with it. And I'm really, really glad that here they did, like, I appreciate, in some ways, this is very similar to the first. You can kind of tell there's, I don't know if it's Radio Silent themselves, maybe some producers or something. There was some worry that if this strayed too far away from the first, that would, be a problem for a number of viewers. But they changed just enough that it does not feel like just the exact same thing. And so stuff like psychological accuracy, authenticity, and level of detail are quite impressive here. We get some insights into various characters. Not everyone necessarily gets to be deep, but I would say the ones who do. And, oh yeah, the ones who need to do. That's what I meant to say. I have had some candy, and it's not left my system yet. I guess maybe at some point in this video it will. Maybe you'll be able to tell. So like the first one, this feels like close to our world in many, many ways, but there's just these little things where it's like, okay, and I really appreciate them staying true to that across both films. It never feels like they realize they could do something and then they're like, I don't know, I think that's too far. If they feel like it makes sense within the world they're creating and that these movies exist in, then they're gonna fucking do it. And fuck you, sit down, shut the fuck up, watch it or don't. But, don't complain about it, because these are the movies they want to fucking make, and I'm here for it. And I guess that, and the level of detail, there were times where this got a tiny bit close to being like overwritten, like just overly complicated and such. And I really admire how they managed to just stop short of that. At least in my personal opinion. I appreciate some might disagree. And the first one is one of those that really does not need a sequel, but if there was gonna be one, and money talks, I think this, okay, I was gonna, that would sound damning with faint praise, so I'm gonna reword it slightly. I think this is a very strong one. And the dialogue is, once again, I'm so glad so much of the creative team is back, because they have not missed a fucking step. Like, if in the future, if you're showing both of these movies to someone back to back and they don't know, I think they might think that these were just literally shot back to back. Like, does not at all feel like, because sometimes, when someone comes back to something and it's been a little while, they just don't quite have it anymore. They can't completely hit the same groove, that sort of thing. But the dialogue, continues to be really well written and equally delivered. And I continue to love the things Grace Macaulay says and how. And yeah, like everyone has their own voice. Like obviously there's some that are somewhat similar for reasons that, I mean, I don't know if they're spoilers. They're probably pretty obvious, so I'll just leave it at that. The direction continues to be strong. I've seen some people say that, I guess that was more for the two Scream movies they made, but some have said that the Radio Silent, direction, is it's underwhelming. I mean, perhaps that's compared to like Wes Craven, which like I don't think that's really much of an insult. Like Jesus fucking Christ, like. But I continue to find it deeply engaging, and yeah, they have, there's a very firm handle on the plot, the emotion, the sort of audience engagement without like jingling keys and shit, and just yeah, like I never felt like I've seen at least one critic say that they felt it was overlong. I don't necessarily disagree, but I would be lying if I claimed that I was bored for a second of this. But certainly it is, it is at least a little longer than the first. I'm almost 100% sure because like I just recently rewatched the first, laughed my ass off again. I have now watched that movie 3 fucking times in not a huge amount of time, and every single time it leaves my sides aching. And I'm pretty sure the first one is like, yeah, shorter than this, at least. And I think that does pretty much cover it. So yeah, the cinematography and editing, there's some really great stuff. The way that, certain things are revealed, and the way that this is one of those where they can make a lot out of just going between different characters, like cutting between them. Their interactions can be genuinely interesting, and they managed to trim this down nicely. And I don't know if that was editing or writing, exactly when, possibly some of both, but yeah, there's not really anything here that doesn't need to be. They continue to have a really, really strong handle on setup and payoff. Like maybe I talk about this too much, but when I was a child and my parents showed me like movies from their youth, I really came to appreciate setup and payoff. And then I started watching a bunch of more recent movies, back in the 90s and early 2000s and such, and I was like, the fuck happened to setup and payoff? Why does no one understand this anymore? Why does shit just happen for no fucking reason at all? I don't know. Do you ever get the feeling that your teenage years was like the teenage years for filmmaking and the internet and shit, and just anyway, I'm so glad to see Radio Silent keep it alive, because once again, 4 movies of theirs I've watched by now, all of them manage this, and there were things where I was like, I'm sorry, is there going to be a fucking payoff to that? And there was, and I was like, you know what? I will just sit down and shut the fuck up. Not that I was talking in the theater, not an asshole, not that big of one at least, but yeah, just, and honestly, I'm not going to spoil it, but the ending, if I had hated everything leading up to the ending would have been worth the price of admission for me, and I did absolutely not hate. Yeah, anyway, I think that does bring us to this. So yeah, production value, set design, locations, costumes, makeup, all really, really impressive and helped convey things about the characters. The the movie looks expensive. I didn't look up the budget because my wrists are still fucked, but yeah, it definitely no part of this looks like they cut corners or anything, and that is important because it is in part about rich assholes who don't who kind of flaunt their wealth, so yeah. And the yeah, you get to see where some characters live and or work, and it really conveys something about them. And right, so once again, Tyler Calvert also pointed this out, but yeah, the scope is indeed larger. It is a bigger area that this is set in on than the first. And yeah, I'm not going to go too much into it, but there's some really incredible work in the departments of costumes and makeup. Music. This once again nails the tense music, and there is a needle drop, which is also a jaw drop. It is fucking amazing. I will talk about it in detail in the thoughts section. And the, I guess that pretty much brings us to the sound design is once again fantastic. Like, these are both violent movies, and part of selling that is the squelchy, nasty, gnarly sound, and yeah, they absolutely nail it. So characters, I will admit at first I was a tiny bit worried that this would be overstuffed. And then I sat down and really thought about it, and it was like, well, I mean, really, it's not like the major cast is roughly the same size, same number of people as the first. Like, it's not really far off. It's just that the characters have, there's some different relationship stuff going on here compared to the first, which once again, I'm trying to be vague so that it is not spoiled. Like, I'm not unhappy that I watched the trailers, but I know some people prefer to just not know anything. I think this would play amazing if you have no idea. If all you know about this movie is that it's a sequel to the first one, I think it will play even better. Only watch the trailers if you need, like, definitely, as mentioned, they're part of what sold me. I mean, I was probably gonna fucking watch it anyway, but I'm not sure I would have watched it in theaters if not for those trailers. And yeah, I am glad I did. It definitely helped. Yeah. But the one thing about the characters, I'm just briefly going to note that there is at least one person who I thought would be in it more, and it was a tiny bit disappointing, but there are so many great ones that that is not a huge problem. I will say, and I appreciate in the first one it's about the same, but I do think the best character stuff in both of these is when we're seeing interactions between two characters who have some kind of personal relationship, or there's some conflict that is specific to them. And yeah, at the same time, I don't think they could have really fit in more than they did, but I will acknowledge that for some of them I was more invested than others. And yeah, they do. So as far as character variety goes, at least one critic said that there's a little bit too much. The rich characters here are, you've got spoiled daughters and fail sons, and I cannot really argue with that. I thought they did just enough plays on those archetypes, but yeah, I guess that covers that. So the acting. I can't say enough good about Samara Weaving. I need to watch more. Please drop me recommendations down below. Are those God damn it, what are they called again? The Babysitter, maybe? Are those as good as they sound? Um, I mean, so far, both of these movies and Ash vs. Evil Dead and no, I get it's not really a spoiler. She appears in at least one Scream movie. And yeah, every single time, she's just so fucking amazing. And it's this thing where she can do this subtle acting that really gets to you emotionally. But one of the big reasons why people are touting her as like one of the, biggest, best new Scream queens is the screaming. And it's I genuinely I remain in awe of her ability, because like some say, oh, her scream is great, and then I always find myself wondering which one, because something you might notice. So I'm not gonna say if she does it in this one as well, not before the thought section, but in the first movie, she screams at least once in this. But in the first Ready or Not, there are multiple distinct, powerful screams delivered by her. And every single time, it's just like, holy shit, And yeah, I think that is all I'm gonna say for her. Yeah, we get a little bit more of her in this. Like, it's not that she's like a nothingless bland character in the first one, but there is, the first one does not talk that much about her life outside of the movie. We get some, background, but this one expands on it in a way that I thought really worked. It's one of those cases where, you gotta be careful with, like, because I suppose there are technically retcons, or at least, we're learning things that we didn't know before. And thinking back to the first movie, yeah, I would say, yeah, this doesn't contradict. I mean, okay, so there's one thing that an argument could be made. I'm going to talk about it in the spoiler section, in the thought section. Anyway, I think, does that pretty much cover the, yeah, Catherine Newton? So I watched her Ant-Man movie. I watched the other two as well. I wanted during that movie for her character to be more compelling, like more flawed, really. It was nothing against her. She did the best she could have with what she was given, but, Disney, they were worried about, like, if we have too flawed of a female character, people are going to say she's a bad role model, and yeah, I am on the record as saying the best female Marvel characters are the messy ones. Jessica Jones is chief among, and honestly, like, you know what, pick a woman that appears in one of the 3 seasons of Jessica Jones. Yes, her, that character as well. Not, it's not limited to Jessica Jones herself. Anyway, yeah, Newton was fantastic here. Just like, she's also someone that I want to watch more of her work. And yeah, just honestly, she's one of, but really it feels like the entire cast is just having so much fucking fun making this. Like, they are enjoying every second of, yeah, and it's infectious, I guess let's see. I just realized I did not recommend a video yet. I'm just real quick gonna do that so I don't forget again. So a really great recent video I watched was In Frame Out's The Deranged Brilliance of Videodrome, which made me appreciate that movie even more than I already did. And if you watched my video on it, you know that, yeah, that's difficult to do. Anyway, yeah, I truly cannot put into words how happy I am to get to see Sarah Michelle Gellar again and stuff, because I was such a fan of hers in like the late 90s and early 2000s, and I don't know, um I know she's done other stuff in between, but just, I think it might actually be that I hate to say it, but I think those two live action Scooby-Doo movies soured me on her and really the entire cast in those, which is too bad because I do really, really like them in other stuff. Anyway, but yeah, this and one other recent thing that I guess I don't want to give away because it's technically a spoiler for that thing. So happy to see her back. She is like sometimes people will say, oh, that actor has aged out of their talent. That absolutely has not happened for Sarah Michelle Gellar. Right. Also, recently, finally got around to fucking rewatching the Whitney Avalon Princess rap battles. I forgot how fucking amazing Sarah Michelle Gellar's is. So that's also something. If you, yeah, I don't know. If you need an encouragement to watch more Whitney Avalon, more Princess rap battles, like, yeah, they're all fucking amazing. I really hope she makes more. Anyway, I mean, I don't think I've watched a Whitney Avalon video and been like, that wasn't that good. Anyway, I feel like that, yeah, it's not a spoiler to say. Geller plays one of the rich people, and thus I guess I won't give away if it's everyone, but I mean, I already said I'm spoiling the first one. Yeah, there's a tendency in these movies. Rich people are not particularly positively depicted. They really understand how much frustration there is with the wealthy right now, and yeah, she's one of the best in this movie because I think it is the very first time you see her. She nails this like self-satisfied, smug smirk that is just like, oh my god, like holy shit. It feels so much of like, I wonder how much time she spent just like studying, because you see it on a bunch of these rich assholes. I guess I don't even need to say assholes after rich, do I? But yeah, just like one of these fucking who feel like they can just ruin everybody else's lives, and a not insignificant amount of them, just not every single individual one, but if you look at it, their dealings have gotten people killed because they just want more money and power. Yeah, I think that does pretty much, it's there's no such thing as an ethical billionaire. Now, the I yeah, I'm definitely also briefly going to talk about, so yeah, Nestor Carbonell, who I fucking loved on Suddenly Susan, I believe it was called. Yeah, I have been wanting to see him do comedy again for so fucking long. Like, he's great in like more dramatic work as well, but I gotta say, yeah, and this definitely hit the spot for that. Yeah, we have a bunch of the cast that I don't really know the names of, but they all do really well. And I think that might just about be... Yeah, it's really great to see Kevin Durand and fucking David Cronenberg, like, it really is, every so often he acts. Or I guess every so often I watch something he acted in, because he has appeared in a bunch of stuff by now. And yeah, like, honestly, a bunch of the time, like, if you just see him act, you might not know that he's, like, an unbelievably talented director. So some directors can't necessarily particularly act, and some of them are, open enough to admit it and just not, or at most, like, do cameos and such. But yeah, Cronenberg, like, I've seen him pop up, like, he's in fucking Jason X, and he's genuinely, like, as good as the acting is in any of the Jason Voorhees movies, pretty much. I've said before, those are just, like, fast food for the, horror sensibilities. It's nothing special, but there's also not one of the official ones that I can't sit down and enjoy watching. Anyway, yes, even the fucking remake, and that's not even true, of, like, Nightmare on Elm Street. I have not tried to watch the sixth movie or the remake in some years now, and I don't know that I'm gonna, because boy are those rough. Other than that, the fifth one's a little weird for me, but other than that, I can get down with the rest of them. Anyway, yeah, so the pacing is quite good. At the very start, I thought that this would take a while. It rather, like, the first time something happens is, let's say, early enough, at least. I watched this in a pretty crowded theater, which is the way to watch it. It was a very engaged crowd, and nobody seemed bored at any point. Yeah. And let's see. So yeah, what it does is there are times where it will just, have just a breather in a way that I wouldn't necessarily say the first one did. And that worked for the first one. It wouldn't really have worked for this one for reasons I'll get into in the thought section. And yeah, the special effects, fucking amazing. There's several really choice shots that are just like, yeesh. And I guess that does bring us nicely to, so yeah, the comedy remains hilarious. I will say, at the very start, there was this bit where I felt like, okay, these two characters are kind of just doing the same joke a little bit too much, but then they started introducing more characters and, letting them all have a chance to shine, and that was when it really, it was no longer a problem. And yeah, I've seen at least one person say, at least one critic say that there's so much blood here that it technically qualifies as a horror movie, but it is not scary. I wouldn't necessarily say, like, I think thriller makes more sense to call it, but it is true. There's quite a lot of blood, but the tension and suspense, I do think, are very impressive. But yeah, it's not scary. I don't think it's really trying to be scary. Like, there are moments that in other movies could have been scary, but the way they play them, it's more like, sometimes it's cool, sometimes it's disturbing, but not really like horror as such. And yeah, so the amount of violence, I think it's one of those things where it's important to distinguish between the fact that a lot of the best, perhaps most of the best horror movies are rated R for piracy, but not all R-rated movies are horror, even the ones with significant violence. And yeah, I think this falls under that. Some have said that it's too violent for its own good. I understand where they're coming from. It's one of those cases where, see, I don't remember who wrote it. I wonder if that's someone who doesn't particularly play violent video games, because to me, this was just like, like, it was effective, but it didn't feel excessive. And I'm not one of those people who say, oh, it's impossible for violence to be excessive in a movie. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that it like grosses me out, but I do think that Jason X, at some point the violence just becomes numbing. But that never happened here. And I think they do just enough to spread it out and keep it creative and interesting. But yeah, if you don't like, violence, blood, gore, this movie's not for you. Neither of these movies are for you. And it is one of those things where, by the end of the first one, yeah, as bloody and gory as that got, was a pretty good, maybe you don't need to go beyond that. And this one, Hollywood sequels, of course, they're gonna go beyond that. And overall, it worked for me. It evidently doesn't for everyone. And according to Google, there was no post-credit scene. I did not stay to find out because so far I don't think Google has led me astray on that front. And yeah, I mean, overall, I guess the first one is at least slightly better than this. And, at this point, I might as well. Yeah, I think there are two Scream movies. Just, the first one is also already great. The second one is even better. I guess overall, I would probably say I like these two movies even better. So there is the full ranking. And yeah, I rate this 8 fucking rich people out of 10. And that brings us into the thoughts section. So once again, from here on out, I am spoiling fucking everything about both of these movies. And I think I will try to keep it more or less chronological, scene by scene. So I think it really works well that, I mean, I guess they fucking had to recreate it because they can't possibly have filmed the, yeah, they recreated the ending of the first movie. And then we see what happens after the, smash cut to black at the end of the first one. That's dedication. And yeah, the camera is like a tracking shot of her, and she gets defibrillated and then wakes up. I think it worked that, so in the trailer, she wakes up and we see the monitor thing and it says 66, which that's the number. I wonder if they kicked themselves when they realized, oh, there's no fucking way we can put 666 though. But yeah, in the trailer, she's like, oh, thank God it's over. And then she realizes about the handcuffs and goes, shit, and it's the T is cut off by cut in the trailer. And then in this, she doesn't even say anything. She just looks down, realizes she's still, she's now handcuffed. I thought that worked because I wouldn't rule out that they shot that specifically for the trailer and only that, because yeah, in the trailer you do need, because the movie has already conveyed, like, that's her mindset. She's thinking, hopefully it's over, and then she realizes it's not. And I always respect when a horror movie, when a sequel acknowledges, yeah, the protagonist would go to fucking jail after the events of that, because so many of the, a lot of horror movies will end with, major character death, and maybe the final girl makes it out, but it probably looks like they're a fucking monster, so, Anyway, I think, oh shit, okay, so just to be absolutely clear, we're not fucking Fed posting here. I'm not calling for any kind of violence against anyone rich or anyone else. I'm talking about we have to politically fight back against the rich. We have to demand our fair share. We have to stop wage theft. We have to get them to treat their employees better and stop fucking, worsening climate change, among other things. I'm not calling for any kind of violence. Anyway, the let's see. So the cop points out, the problems, and the first big laugh of the movie was, "Can I have a cigarette?" Okay, so couple of things. You are wanted for murder. B, you want to smoke in a fucking hospital? I know you suffered, trauma. Did you forget you're not in the fucking 1960s? Where are you gonna smoke next? A fucking airplane in midair? Like, Jesus Christ. And immediately, I knew I was gonna love Faith the moment that we met her. So here I am, emergency contact. Oh, hey, who are you? And just, okay, I'll give you a minute, then we're gonna, these questions and such. And just so apparently the, what's the word? The Team Radio Silent had plans for a movie about two sisters, and then this idea of making another, making a Ready or Not sequel that came up, and so they just combined their ideas. And it's really cool when this sort of thing happens, because that is the same way that we got the what's the word? It's similar to how before James Cameron got to make Aliens, he did have some of the ideas that ended up in that movie, but he wasn't planning on Xenomorph immediately. And then he was offered hey, do you want to what's the word? If he wanted to make a sequel to the Ridley Scott movie. And I think that does pretty much cover... Oh, shit, I just realized I wanted to read. You know what? I'm just real quick gonna skim and just see if this is worth mentioning yet. So while I... so basically the... and and then at the same time, I heard recently, that's also how we got fucking American Psycho 2, or rather how the movie that they were making got to be called American Psycho 2, and I think I've said my piece on that movie. I don't blame Mila Kunis. I fucking loved her in Black Swan. Moving on. But but no, it is genuinely a really cool... it didn't feel like if I hadn't read that this, that the sister stuff started as something else, I would actually have thought that it, and it's such a great way, because the first movie is specifically about how Grace is having to, she's taken care of herself for basically her entire life. She grew up in foster homes, she didn't have family. And then this one we find out she had a family, but there's, she had a sister, but they're estranged, and I don't know. It doesn't feel wrong to me that the because that's a thing though. Families fall apart, and sometimes you do have someone, that's it's a fucking phrase. I have no son, daughter, etc. But for her in this one to be taking care of the sister that feels she abandoned her, and which is also just, I guess Radio Silent just, according, if going by these 4 movies, they can't go for terribly long without a messy, complicated sister relationship, which I appreciate. It's super important to have, the I have not felt like any of these were just felt like a retread or something. And I mean, other than their writing and direction, it helps that they have incredibly talented performers engaging in it. And I think that does pretty much... Yeah, IMDb trivia is worth reading, including the spoiler stuff. And I guess that does cover... Yeah. Great. So let's see. Yeah, and the thing about, why am I still your emergency contact? Do you not have anyone else? And that's a great, because there's several things going on there. One is, of course, that for a while she kind of didn't. Like, she didn't invite anyone to the wedding. Everyone there was Damas. All the guests, I mean. But it's also like, in the first movie, you describe an 18-month bonathon with Alex. At no point in all of that, even after he proposed and you said yes, did you change emergency contact to him? Like, that feels like, I mean, considering that she is estranged from her emergency contact, like that, that feels like subconsciously, I'm not saying she wanted to get fucking hurt so that, her sister would be called to the hospital. I'm saying it feels like on some level she hoped that they would reconnect. And she does at one point, late in the movie, she says, I looked for you. I wanted you at the wedding. And I think that does... Yeah, and, good way to reiterate, in case people forgot, because it has been 7 fucking years, the plot of the first one. She says all the most important stuff, although I guess the thing about, like, and then I saw an invisible guy, so I guess it was the devil. That must really just be set up for the callback at the very end, though. That's really the only thing I can think of. That I will also say, I'm fairly confident it was like CG, and I'm not saying it was like a bad effect or something, but in the first movie, I think at least some of that was an actual physical performer, and that did feel like, oh, they made it bigger for the sake of making it bigger. But yeah, and at first she doesn't even want to say, and what happened, and I do appreciate the thing about, like, well, you wouldn't believe me, and then she starts to leave, and it's like, no, I'm trying, I want us to have a better relationship, and she lays it all out, and and we know throughout that whole thing, well, there's going to be a joke at the end of that, the reaction of faith is going to be, but I appreciate, I thought that it was just going to be something like, you're right, I don't believe you, which I don't think would have been that funny, but her saying, you are so going to jail, that made me laugh. And the, let's see, yeah, then we get the, let's see, I guess the, right, and I do also appreciate, yeah, the first movie, she smokes at the very start and at the very end. And then this one, she tries to smoke at the very start, but it's only at the very end that she gets to smoke. Even though she keeps asking for a cigarette. And I think that is when... Yeah, so we see Cronenberg. And that intro. Holy shit. So he's watching the news, and it just says, well, there's no end in sight for this war, and he just texts, let's do the ceasefire. And then immediately on the TV, he's like, oh, breaking news, ceasefire confirmed. Like, what? Like, that is, like, fucking cartoonish levels. Like, oh my god. I hope that Radio Silent keep making... Did I call them Team Radio Silent? I think I'm thinking of Team Silent from, like, the Silent Hill games 1 through 3. Whatever the fuck. Anyway... Radio Sound, I hope they keep making satire, because my god, that is fucking funny. Oh my fucking god. Just, like, not only did it happen when he said it, it happened so fucking fast that the news knew within, like, I don't know, just mere seconds at least of him even texting it. Wow. Because, yeah, like, obviously it's not quite like that in the real world, but yeah, rich people, and I'm not talking about Jewish people, I'm talking about, they have various different backgrounds. Many of them are cishet white men who are Christians, or at least pretend to be, because I maintain that if you are rich and you are not using that wealth to help the poor, you're not a fucking Christian. Because that is literally, like, how many Jesus quotes do you need that are specifically saying that you are going against what he said? I'm going to move on. But yeah, they have a ridiculous amount of power, and the casual way that they use. And in this particular case, the thing he did was making the world a better place, but it's also just, I think they went with that because it's the kind of thing that's like, I mean, they didn't specify the conflict, but I can think of one or two where a ceasefire is almost definitely not going to happen, and or at least won't be respected. Yeah, it's is this the part I'm worried? Am I becoming a cliche? It just feels wrong to not mention it. We should not forget about the genocide that the IDF are carrying out in the Gaza Strip of Palestinians. Because some people thought that the ceasefire would be respected. And yeah. Anyway, let's see. So and then, like, when I saw him start to text something, I thought that it would be about the plot in this one, and that, ceasefire, that maybe, there's like a conflict between because I knew from the trailer that the heads of the families, but nope, that's not what and I think the next thing we see is and so, he has Pernilla fetch the kids, because she's very fetching. So go fetch. And that movie's still in my mind since watching it weeks ago. And let's see, what was the other thing that I wanted to say? The other thing that I wanted to say was that I felt like Pernilla, was essentially this movie's version of, I'm afraid I forget his name, but the butler, the first movie, and I really appreciated how different she was. Like, did she say one fucking word in this entire thing? I don't think so. She, as the first one, the butler was kind of, a subversion of the always calm and polite butler, because he's like singing and he's fucking obsessed with that one piece of music, for example. There was also, fantastic use of classical music in this one, but Pernilla really does, follow that stereotype, except there at the end when she's like, I can have the power. So I thought that was a great choice. Then we, so back in the hospital. And I was genuinely not sure what was going to happen next, because the cop is right there taking, Grace out of the hospital. And then, he takes a knife to the neck. And right, that also, so we have the entire montage of that. That was really cool, seeing all the different, and that sequence alone looked like it costs, like, pretty significant amount of money. But yeah, seeing all of them, different parts of the world, seeing all these rich people realize and get ready for the council meeting. Right. I just want to briefly note, just in case someone, sometimes there's like spoil sports who remove cool shit from IMDb trivia. Ursula notes, 1963 was the last time the council convened, and someone noted in IMDb trivia, so they're behind the Kennedy assassination, like, for real. That's the implication, right? Because otherwise, that's a very specific. She didn't just say, like, I don't know, 60 years ago, I guess, but very specific. Yeah. Anyway, I think I guess I don't have too much to add about that montage. It's just it does such a great job making us hate these people immediately. They're just such fucking assholes. Just yeah. Let's see. Okay. I'll just note that my favorite was Kevin Durant. Just like yes, and he opens this box, and there's just like, fucking dude. Tony Montana called. He wants his Coke Mountain back, and he puts like just small countries worth of. I don't mean enough to work for all the people in a small country. I mean enough that it could fill that country of Coke on his hand and just yeah, holy shit. Just immediately you get the yeah. And then but yeah, so yeah, he is trying to kill her before the council has had their meeting. And I thought they did a really great job because we don't know until the end that that's just not going to work. Like I think like maybe a second or two before he exploded in blood, I was like, oh, right, from the trailer. So that's what, I have to admit, I did not think that would happen so early. But it's one of those things, when Hollywood does a sequel, if there's a big thing at the end of the movie, and they make a sequel, the sequel might have that big thing happen right at the start, just to say, oh, see, it's still here, and then maybe they'll do even bigger later. And this was one of the ones where I thought it worked. I guess that does, but yeah, the hospital thing, we're seeing that Grace is still ready despite getting. I mean, she needed to go to the fucking hospital. She passed out, which really no wonder. Oh, right, another thing from IMDb Trivia, just in case somebody removes it. Apparently, originally, there was like a deleted post-credit scene for the first movie. There was like, the council has to, gather because Ladoma's, and yeah, now that actually is what happens in this movie. So that is genuinely a cool idea. And that is also just like, yeah, I mean, the idea that there would just be this one rich family that's like, I mean, it works for the first movie. I don't think that the council should have been mentioned in the first movie. I'm glad they deleted that post-credit scene. But for that to be the way to expand, like, the horror scenario for this movie being made, there's a sequel to the first movie, is Grace just goes to try to marry another person, and maybe he's not even rich. Maybe she's like, nope, not another rich person, and then it still turns out to be, oh, he's secretly rich, and he also wants to play hide and seek. It's just, but instead this idea of the council and the various rules explained, I thought was a solid way to do a follow-up. And I genuinely, I hope they don't try to make a third, or at the very least, they only if they have amazing ideas, which I do think they did this time, because I don't even know what the fuck they would do. I mean, for one thing is the fact that by the end of this one, I mean, all of them are just dead. All the lines are dead. I guess maybe even the one who drove off, she was. I'm not 100% certain, but certainly I don't know that she would have any motive to go back and fuck with Grace. Like, I don't know, what would they do? Are the two sisters gonna go around the world, trying to make sure rich people, do the right thing or something? It just, yeah. But I mean, I will say, if they end up making a bunch of these, it would be a little funny if by the end of it we have like extended family. There's the mother and niece and aunt and cousin twice removed, and just, yeah, end up with like an entire fucking soccer team's worth of anyway, of female relatives who can survive this kind of scenario. Anyway, so the but yeah, Grace is still ready to continue fighting, hiding and such, but Faith is really not up for this. Like, Grace has to cover her mouth to keep her from screaming, which is understandable, but yeah, like, this really is, this situation could get, I mean, they do, I mean, ultimately, he would not have been allowed to kill Grace, but he could have killed Faith, because she is not part of this. But yeah, they hide behind the counter, and he goes up and he finds, oh, the door doesn't open. Well, in that case, immediately it's such a great, because when we first see that they can't get through that door, we're just like, oh, well, shit, how are they going to get out now? We don't necessarily realize it's set up because they are not able to find another path out of there before he's already gotten back to there. And so when he goes up there, we know, well, it's just a matter of time before he realizes that it doesn't open right now, and he's going to turn around and he's going to spot them. But there was just enough, like, it was not many seconds, but it was just enough, for them to go out of there. And then we have that great thing, which also, I gotta say, felt very Scream. I have to go get that, the cop's weapon, because, like, what the fuck else is he gonna do, and yeah, having to purposefully move into an area that is dangerous, move out of safety, relative safety, because it's just not sustainable. Yeah. And the let's see, yeah. So the big blood explosion, onto both sisters, and that also, Faith sees that with her own two eyes. So now it's like, okay, Grace was telling the truth. Like, this has to be, that actually happened. Because, like, if she didn't see that, and she's just sitting there listening to the rules, is she really gonna believe? Like, would she not just think, oh, it's a bunch of fucking weirdos? Like, but yeah, and then, the gas, and they, the sisters are taken, and yeah, the lawyer going like, and who might you be? And I guess that, yeah, so that brings us to the Danforths, going in there, and just like I already talked about, Sarah Michelle Gellar's smirk, it's just pitch perfect. Like, and the conversation they have, and this thing of immediately we see that Titus, my God, these fucking names, Ursula and Titus. So I guess, was their mother big fan of Disney's Little Mermaid, maybe? And well, shit, I guess that can't be, because that story is not, that movie is not quite old enough for that to have been, yeah. Anyway, Titus is complaining and yeah, being a little whiny, and then, he's slapped by his father. And later we see Ursula slap him, and he also starts getting more physically violent, including eventually with Ursula, and even kills her. And yeah, I'm sorry, there are so many rich guys who are like this, like, yeah, they were abused, but now they're taking it out on others. And I'm not saying that they're killing people with their own two hands, but they are callous about the death that their decisions cause. Completely unnecessarily early deaths. Which, again, not calling for violence. I'm saying they should be held accountable. If you kill one person, you're a murderer. But if you kill a bunch because you let things happen that makes you money, but you knew, because of experts, would kill people, you're a job creator. Anyway, yeah, I fucking love, oh my god, it's so goddamn morbid that they not only, I mean, it's one thing that, okay, the patriarch has to die so that the inheritance, which also, like, once again, like in the first movie, we're seeing how fucking ridiculous these goddamn rules are, so that these two have to murder their own father because that's the best chance of getting, because, like, yeah, obviously, as fun as it would be to spend this movie watching David fucking Cronenberg try to hunt Samara Weaving, yeah, that is not what they, but they have to do it. It's like, I mean, even if you want to say, well, he has to die, I feel like there's other ways. I don't think Pernilla would turn down the opportunity, but I mean, it's based on the way she leaps into the pit there at the very end is all I'm saying. And I'm not saying that there's something wrong with, wanting more power when you're that far down, but it is obviously saying, even if you don't have power, but you work in such proximity to it and you choose to do that, you can still be a really, vicious person. If you haven't already, you have to watch let's see, I believe Laura Crone was the one who did a fantastic video. I believe it is called Will Ready or Not De-Radicalize You? Now, I think that does... But yeah, I mean, yeah, the Cronenberg character is just like, stop complaining. You're a Danforth. Act like a man. Which is already, yeah, that's the kind of thing that a bunch of rich people was, and I appreciate not only, but yeah, abusive assholes who call themselves parents because they share DNA with the person they're physically assaulting, and say, oh, this it's just discipline, that's how you raise a child, or work out frustration, more like. But then we find out, oh, the thing that he's saying, be a man, he's talking about them fucking killing him. And so it's like, well, now I don't know I mean, I guess I don't side with anyone in this situation, because first it was like, I mean, I don't know if I feel, that bad for them because they're clearly assholes, but still, And I guess, is that when we get the, I guess this is after we saw them clear the resort. And I will say I did not love, like, I don't know, my misogyny sense was tingling non-zero number of times in this. Basically the bride going, are you fucking kidding me? And then later with the entire character who turns out to be the ex of Alex, Alexix. Which sucks because they had some really funny stuff with it. Like, the performance, once again, as I said in review, on point. Absolutely nailed it. But yeah, I did not love how gendered that was, of these, like, negative stereotypes. And I appreciate it's a movie that also goes after the men, but see, the thing is, I felt like with Titus, they were actually criticizing toxic masculinity and frail egos, because, like, he literally says, that, you won't control me, as he's fucking murdering. Like, she can't defend herself. It's not like a fucking duel or something. That is actually, like, because there are cis-het men, possibly also others, but those are, you hear about if you follow such things. There are cis-het men, many of them white, who will literally murder someone to prove that they are in control, and that's an actual thing. And because he's rich, he can do it right in front of, because that's the thing. Like, if he wasn't rich and he was doing it in front of that many people, or I guess not that many, but, yeah, clear eyewitnesses, there's some chance that maybe there would be some consequence, someone would intervene, but because he's rich, he can just get away with it. And I'm not saying every rich person, but it is a fact that there are rich people who have engaged in actions that literally did lead to someone dying in a way that was completely preventable. And the person got off basically because they were rich. Remember the affluenza kid? Like, the lawyer basically said, he's too rich to understand right from wrong. And you think that's an argument for him being a free man rather than spending the rest of his life? Listen, I am against the over-incarceration that is prevalent in America. If you're telling me that someone doesn't understand that it is wrong to take an action that gets someone killed, like, bare minimum, someone should be watching them. They should not have access to a car. Anyway, I guess so that's what it felt like with the men. And you also have that guy who's like too cowardly to fight, so he relinquishes everything and then whines about, oh, I lost everything. No, you gave away everything because you can't, like, it's just, yeah. At the very least, have a conversation with her, and if she says no, then you do it. But like so many rich people, he wants all this power and money, but he doesn't want any responsibility. And that felt like, okay, they are criticizing toxic male behavior. But then with these female characters who are like obsessed with their ex and the wedding and that whole thing, I'm sorry. Once again, 1960s felt like, just what the fuck are we doing? I'm not saying that you can't listen. I said at the start of the video, I love messy female characters. This is a progressive channel. We support women's rights and women's wrongs. But do something with it. Don't just make these, like, really ugly jokes. Like, once again, I've done videos talking about how much I love the individual. I'm not going to give examples here because I do not want to spoil it, but Jessica Jones, that show, there were so many times where women would do fucking horrible things. And sometimes we would be sitting back going like, this is a terrible fucking person. And that's fine because they're real. And in this movie, neither of these two characters really feel like real people. Like, really, overall, it's probably only Grace and Faith who feel like full people. Everybody else is, they're for Radio Silent to criticize, this type of person. And that's fine because most of them are rich and, it's exaggerated, but the way they behave is actually, there's a lot of truth to it. It's just the exact way they do it, the degree, and these sorts of things. But yeah, I think that might just about... What was the other thing? But yeah, I thought it really worked, the way that Titus every so often would say or do something, and like, I got the sense that the audience were also like, what the fuck is he doing? Just stop. Nobody wants you to do this. You're not impressing anyone. Just fucking stop. Seriously. But he feels like he has to assert himself because he's the man. And he's rich, and he's white, and he's cishet. He has all of these amazing qualities that he didn't work for and were just an accident of birth. So you should respect him, and he should get to be just the most fucking awful, obnoxious asshole. Like, nobody really likes him. In the first movie, the entire Ladomas family seems to not like each other. You've got lines. Oh my god, such fucking gold. Brown-haired niece. You continue to exist. See, that's how you fucking do it. That's two women yeah, that's a woman being really, really mean to another woman, and it didn't feel like, because at the end of the day, that's also, you could have had one of the men say that to a man, and it would have basically been, the same kind of thing. But yeah. Let's see. I feel like okay, I want to just briefly note, I thought it was really inspired casting to have Catherine Newton. I mean, there is a very strong resemblance between her and Weaving, and she just fits in just wonderfully. Like the next time I watch the first one, which is going to happen, yeah, I'm probably going to be sitting there like, I miss, I gotta watch the second one again because Catherine Newton is in that one, just let's see, what's the other thing? Oh right, and she was apparently super stoked to meet Sarah Michelle Gellar and like wore clothes so that Sarah Michelle Gellar would be like, oh, that's the thing I wore in that movie, and that's genuinely super cool. And I totally understand. Like, I honestly, is it entirely possible to watch at least certain of Sarah Michelle Gellar's, the things she did in the 90s and early 2000s, and not at all think, okay, that's really, really cool. That's a great performance, And I haven't actually watched Buffy yet. I own them. The thing is, I was gifted them before the person who gifted them to me, or I myself, knew the allegations against Joss Whedon. And now, I mean, I think at some point I'll watch them. I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to do videos on them, Buffy and Angel, because I would definitely want to make sure that I'm not, I don't know if I thought I did enough in my videos on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for that. I don't want to be celebrating Joss Whedon, obviously, But anyway, the things I did watch of Sarah Michelle Gellar were Cruel Intentions, I Know What You Did Last Summer, I already mentioned Scooby-Doo, which was where it was a little bit, and I don't blame her for that. It was, it was primarily the directing. Even some of the writing isn't terrible. I don't think it's Gunn's best work, but there's some good stuff in there. But the shit, is that really? Little bit of Scream was also she also did. Wow, is that really it? I feel like there's something else, but I can't quite place it. But yeah, I've only watched a tiny little bit of Buffy back, yeah, several decades ago. I would occasionally catch episodes. Anyway, right. So yeah, it's not a huge surprise that they got her back in the bloodied wedding dress from the first movie, which is still all torn up and shit. And yeah, like the idea that, yeah, she passed out right after the events of the first one. And so, yeah, her clothes are there in a bag, and we have her putting it on, which is similar to how in the first one she starts tearing parts of the dress off and then puts on the, I want to say, tennis shoes instead of the fancy shoes she was wearing during the wedding, And it's one of those things where I'm really glad they didn't try to replicate. Like, I think it would have been terrible if they had gotten her into, like, hypothetical, let's say that the lawyer was like, well, since you have moved on to round 2, you are now going to wear this ceremonial uniform, and then she spends the rest of the movie getting that covered in blood and guts and having to tear parts off just like in the first one, I do at the same time appreciate it's just not quite the same. The first one is literally, it's her fucking wedding day. She was hoping to consummate, and then suddenly turns out the entire in-law family is consummate incompetence at, finding and taking her out. That's a very different thing. She was still in the wedding dress during it, and she has to tear it, Yeah, ultimately, I think there's so many new great elements here that it doesn't bother me, but I understand if some are like, because like obviously this is not, I mean, this is a situation no one can really relate to, whereas the first one, like everybody understands, even if like I've never gotten married, came close once, but everybody understands the concept. Once you get to a certain age, I think maybe teenagehood or later, you realize, oh, wedding day is really, really stressful, and I have heard, obviously, I can only go off secondhand information, but I've heard that it is the most stressful for the bride specifically, so to add homicidal in-laws to that, that's a very different thing. And yeah, I think, does that get us to the yeah, and so yeah, the various rich people meet each other, or yeah, convene for the meeting. And yeah, just these little great things, but the car doors open and a mountain of, massive amount of billowing smoke come out, and little things about this is exciting. Well, for me, it's terrifying for you because obviously you're gonna lose. And let's see. Yeah, that one kid or teenager, I guess, who's just like permanently, like his eyes are fucking glued to the screen, which also that felt like, yeah, rich asshole kid, as soon as he arrives, what's the Wi-Fi password, that was fucking great. That didn't feel like ageist or like stupid fucking generational, conflict bullshit, because like we got to get past like generational conflict between like whites and others and such. Like, I'm not saying, listen, to be clear, I am not saying that if you're not white, you should forgive white people. I 100% understand resentment. I think it's extremely important for us white people to acknowledge the awful things that our ancestors did, or the privilege we have because of it, and do what we can to support. What I mean is, I think it's bullshit to be fighting, like, I'm not here to tell you that you shouldn't fight white people. I'm here to say, ideally, we work together against the rich instead. And it's too bad when various, non-whites fight each other instead. That is what the rich want. They don't want us as a unified front because there are more of us than there are of them. And, we have potential tremendous influence. And that's also why you're seeing all this panicking and, so many ICE, among others, like they are desperately clinging on to power right now. Anyway, I think the, but yeah, rich brat constantly focused on the game. I love the part during the big, which according to IMDb trivia was the most difficult scene because it's like 10 minutes of just solid exposition. But he's like, yes. Oh shit. I mean, hail Satan. But the I think that does get us to the I love the way that immediately we're seeing, the first time that the new rules are even displayed, we see that demonstrated. I mean, I think it's the first time. Anyway, one of the first times we see someone tries to violate the rules. They don't even follow their own ridiculous rules. Like, the rich do indeed do things that the rest of us couldn't get away with, and they shouldn't get away with again. Once again, I'm not talking about violence. I'm saying they should be held accountable when they do something fucked up. And we also see how the rules really constrain, like, so yeah, these two twins have to murder their own fucking father, just because of these ridiculous, And I feel like there's one more thing I wanted to say right around there, but so they're all gathered there, and we're told about all these, the rules are laid out as Elijah Wood, yet again, has to deal with a really powerful ring that is worn by the person who is in control of the entire world and is evil and really powerful. And I'm sorry, like, I don't know if it was like they told him that and he was like, yes, or they told him that and he was like, really, again? Because, like, he's taken so many roles that are completely different from Frodo. I mean, I don't get the sense that he wants us to only think of him as that. But yeah, I fucking love Elijah Wood playing a villain. Like, here, or an antagonist, I guess, is more. Here, Sin City, I guess, can a case be made for... I mean, he was playing an assassin. I can't believe I'm blanking on the title of that, but there was this quirky indie comedy that he did with very stacked cast. Shit, I'm sorry, I just do not remember what it's called. It wasn't Chain of Fools, was it? But it was some of the same people of Chain of Fools, maybe? I just don't remember. Watched it, 30 fucking years ago. Or thereabouts, I think. Over 25, I think, years ago. Anyway, I feel like I thought it really worked. This whole thing of explaining all these rules, and then, over the course of it, we're seeing, more rules are added, and that's how they keep it from just being stale. Because, like, the thing is, and I had totally forgotten that. I noticed it, especially on this most recent viewing. The first movie, the hide and seek, not that big a part of the actual movie. I think we are 30 minutes in before she realizes that there will be horrible consequences for her if they find her. I appreciate that the game had started at least several minutes earlier. And when it ends, I mean, I think that first movie, I think, is maybe 40 minutes of hide and seek. And then, before that, it's set up. And then we have the wrap up at the end. And this one, I mean, the hide and seek goes on for longer, but we also have these slightly quieter moments where the sisters talk, for example, and characters are trying to find where they are, stuff like that, So, yeah, that was a good way to handle that. And it required the rules. Like, I get, feeling that they shouldn't be there, but I think at that point... you're asking for a completely different movie, or hypothetically just no sequel to the first one, which I 100% respect. But I don't know, if you think that you could have basically the same movie without all this extra lore, I mean, you can make your case in the comments. I'll hear you out, but right now I just don't see it. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, she again asks for a cigarette and is denied one. And then this fucking asshole just sits there, I can smoke whenever I want. Just, oh my god. And let's see, the thing about, like, the person with the ring controls everything, controls the entire world, which is, again, just like, not quite how it works in the real world, but that is a good way to just make it. Because, like, hypothetically, once again, I'm not advocating for violence, but, if you want to look at, like, who really rules the world, it's not one person. Some of the very most powerful people are indeed unelected, just rich, assholes, but it's not just one person, And I would also say in real life, they don't necessarily, like, struggle over power. I don't know, I guess it varies, but some of them are fine working together. But there is, rivalry over who is the wealthiest, so you do have that element in there. And they do also, like, for almost the entire movie, they try very hard not to kill each other. And I guess that does. Yeah, I appreciate, she says and then shouts and screams that she's not playing. And then, when her sister's threatened, she says she agrees to play. And yeah, as so I said in the review that I would talk about it briefly. Yeah, indeed, this one as well. Samara Weaving screaming, that rhymes, is just... I have never encountered anyone who can scream quite like she can. It really is just like, I don't want her to end up only playing, like, if she doesn't want to only be a scream queen. I don't know. I haven't watched enough of her work yet, but as long as she wants to do these, I hope she gets to keep making them, because it really is just absolutely amazing. And not just because of the screaming, to be clear. Her talent in general. Like, it really felt like I was watching sisters, argue. I saw at least one person say, is it really credible that they would still be like, what did they say, snippy? After, like, getting shot at and such. And, like, I mean... It's not exactly a realistic movie, though. I mean, you've got this whole, like, pact with the devil, when it's like, I mean, in real life, these would be conservative Christians, like, you don't actually need the devil in there, but I think that might have been a way to sell it, to get the masses watching a movie this critical of capitalism. It was like, oh, but it's of the devil, you see. When, like, yeah, it's people with this amount of money in America, many of them white, they would be Christian. They would not be Satanist. I'm not saying Satanists don't exist, but you know what? I would say simply watch some of the actual Satanists. I'm pretty fond of the Antibot, who makes atheist content right here on YouTube. Anyway, I feel like that does... Yeah, oh my god, the part where, okay, so, I think it was Pernilla was supposed to inject, and then Titus like, no, I'll do it. Sweetie, you're not impressing anyone. Like, this is just sad. It's pathetic sad. And I guess that does... Yeah, I really like the point about, do I have to use the blood pen? Could we at least sterilize it? And yeah, like, you're gonna fucking all get infected, motherfuckers. Like, why are you so stubbornly insisting on these ridiculous rules? Well, it's like, these rules were probably written back when people didn't know that blood could carry disease, It's just, yeah. And I think that does cover the, I appreciate the way that, so they call her Ladomas. And even with the gag in her mouth, she's like, Macaulay! And, and oh my god, when Faith is like, I'm not even supposed to be here today, man. I'm just her emergency contact. But your biologically sisters, like, what happened? She was an asshole. She was, just, yeah, that was funny. And then they're sitting there like, what happened though? Like, it's a fucking reality television show, and they're just like, popcorn in hand, like, oh my god, these fucking assholes. If you wanted a calm, quiet conversation where you could get to know these people, maybe don't tie them up, gag them, and say you're going to fucking murder them. Just a thought. Like, that's how little they think of that. Rich people don't respect the rest of us. They don't give a shit about us. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can just look at their actions, And my god, the part where, so I don't remember everybody's names, but the kid goes, can I talk to it? It, not even her. Like, my god, I rarely say this, but I think I would have preferred if he said, Father, may I speak to the femoid? Like, it, really, it? Jesus Christ, just, yeah. And the, I think. Right, I also really like the thing about, I wasn't expecting someone to explode onto me. Yeah, you never really get used to it. Shit, I forget if she said you never get used to it or you do get used to it. Or it's surprising the first time, something along those lines. But yeah, that was very funny. And yeah, so they wake up, out in the green. And then it's like, oh, I'm sorry. Was I a naughty boy and forgot to put the keys in? Hmm. This fucking asshole. Oh my god. Just amazing. Um, One thing that was different in the trailer. So in the trailer, when she laughs on the golf cart, and with the gun and everything, she laughs, snorts. Did miss that a tiny bit, but I respect it. But yeah, and so they just run, and Nestor, who is like, yeah, I've got you now. You are right in my scope. And then he presses the wrong button and the clip falls out. Like, my God. Fucking clown. Amazing. And yeah, one of them just goes running with the blade after yeah. And yeah. Sarah Michelle Gellar with the fucking shit. What are those called again? But yeah, old timey pistol. Like the kind of pistol that the Second Amendment is actually supposed to be. When it was written, it was not taking into account that at some point in the future, maybe there would be like, assault rifles and shit. Anyway, that brings us to yeah, and so we're seeing, they have to work together, the sisters, but yeah, they keep having different ideas, and immediately set up, Grace thinks things through and plans, and carries that out, and that is also, we saw that in the first one. She tries to really apply herself and not just jump into something. And Faith's ideas, yeah, I have to agree with Grace. I don't think they would have worked. Um, and yeah, and they're even handcuffed to each other. And then we have that painful line of, you're here to slow me down. Like, Jesus Christ. And I do really think it worked the way that, yeah, they said incredibly mean things to each other. And yeah, I mean, sometimes that's what siblings are like. And I'm not talking about my own siblings, but I have heard a lot of siblings are like that. Now, I think that does bring us to the... Let's see. Right. Oh my God. The part where... So, Zheng, I think was her name. She flies out a drone, and like, I gotta say, so I knew from the trailer at some point there's going to be an explosion. I thought that it was like, yeah, that was where it would be, and then it flies up and it just says, hey, I found a loophole. We can work this out. I don't want to harm you. But then it's shot, and at first I thought that they were going to have that as like a running gag throughout the rest of the movie, but the next time they meet, she explains it, and yeah. But let's see. I feel like that does bring us to the... Yeah, and so we have the whole sniping thing, and it was also really funny that he keeps fucking missing, and it's like, what are you doing? Just, oh my God. And right, them watching on the TV was also funny, and one of them knows exactly how to deal with the TV, but the others don't. I think let's see. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the Alex X later. Normally I would not give her a nickname based on her relationship to a man, but in this movie she defines herself by her relationship to a man, so it feels appropriate rather than kicking down. Now, I think that does bring us to the, let's see. There's definitely at least one more thing I want to say. Right, yeah. So during the sniping, very tense when I think it's Grace's head like pops up, but then Faith manages to yeah, genuinely clever. Cause a bunch of smoke by burning the leaves. I think it was. Yeah, that was yeah. It was just a spur of the moment kind of idea, but it worked. So I do really appreciate that. Also acknowledging because like sometimes it is there are situations where if you overthink something, it's not going to work out. I guess I feel like there's at least one more thing. Let me think. So we have what was the other thing? Let's see. God damn it! I swear it's right on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, and that's when so the explosion, and then we have the fucking shrapnel sticking out. Don't look at it! Don't look at it! And yeah, it was fun to see Catherine Newton swear. I understand this is not the first time she's done that in a film, but did not happen in Ant-Man 3. Anyway, I feel like that gets us to the so yeah, they and genuinely appreciated. Yeah, she helps pull the shrapnel out, and she seems to know what she's doing. That's the kind of thing where if you wanted these to just be two sisters who just hate each other's guts always, rather than just they have trauma, they have a complex relationship. Yeah, I mean, she could have like twisted one of them, for example, and said, "Oh, my finger slipped," but no, she actually did, and she tries to soothe her. She's like, "Okay, just relax, I'll pull them out," and yeah, I thought it worked really well. The drip feed of gradually we get you have the thing about like you abandoned me. No, I had to go, and then yeah, and genuinely it is I have heard of stories not entirely dissimilar, and it genuinely is like yeah, I'm sorry, I think 18-year-olds, unless they have a lot of money and can hire people, and maybe, I don't know, I guess hypothetically, if they're in a stable romantic relationship, maybe, but otherwise, no, an 18-year-old probably can't take care of a 15-year-old. I mean, in general, at 18, you probably shouldn't really be responsible for anything living other than like maybe a pet or something, and yeah, a 15-year-old doesn't understand that, and she's held on to that for 10 years now. I mean, no, it's not. I don't have to explain why she's 25 because they practically say it. Anyway, but yeah, and the thing about like oh, you just married, it's brought up again, this idea in the first one that's also said, is Grace a gold digger? And like obviously both movies are quite clear that that's not the case, but there are characters who think that, and the fact that one of them is her own sister, flesh and blood, that stings. And yeah, the fact that she made up Derek, and then it's like it's not even that good of a, she still, because like, and that's the thing. That was an area where it felt like, okay, they are definitely aware of misogyny and trying to fight back against it, because when she's trying to like she can't quite find a balance between sounding successful. I mean, it's fiction. We find out later in the movie it is. She can't find a balance between her fantasy partner being successful and her not sounding like a gold digger. And that's the thing. Like, it's such a ridiculous, like, the standards placed on women and, minorities in general are impossible. Like, it is possible to unlearn bigotry. And it is learned. It is not natural, despite what some would try to have you believe. Completely absurd statement, But the bigot has to want to unlearn it, and you cannot compel a bigot to love someone that they are bigoted towards, and you cannot reason them out of, if they are not open to it, because they were not reasoned into it. Bigotry brain rot is a very real thing. Bigotry does not make any rational, logical sense. It is purely emotion. But yeah, women are somehow both supposed to be, successful, but, according to the misogynist, not by working. But then when they don't work, it's also like, why don't you work? But they also have to be with someone not for the money, because that's somehow bad, even though misogynists also say that the only way a woman can be happy is to be with a man who takes care of her, including financially. Like, it makes no sense. It is just male fragility and insecurity. Your problems are not the fault of women as a group or feminism. Maybe some is, in part at least, because of specific women. I'm not saying that women never make mistakes, but by and large, if you're blaming feminism or women for something, it's probably patriarchy and or capitalism. There's a really excellent example in a recent Tabernacle, or fairly recently anyway, video about AI dating, something along those lines, wherein a guy apparently gave up on all human beings because his girlfriend cheated on him. So one woman did one thing, and now I guess I appreciate that it's not only women, it's all of humanity. That feels weird to say. But yeah, like, that makes no sense. Like, so one person out of billions of people, that's enough for you to just give up. That's, yeah, bigotry, brain rot. In his case, bigotry against all humans. Anyway, I feel like that does pretty much... There's at least one more thing that I wanted to say before moving on from this part. Let's see. So yeah, I really love the bonding when, once she tells the truth and is like, that's not, I made that up. And then she starts saying, I'm technically, I'm, what did she say? I'm a hostess. And then, Grace is like, well, as a waitress, I technically outrank you. Yeah, well, I'm a hostess because they said I was prettiest. Yeah, but just that whole thing was just so fucking good. And the subtle acting, like, you can immediately tell, they're fucking with each other now. They're playing off each other. And this is, again, it's such a, it doesn't have to be sibling, but, like, yeah, this shows that they do have a relationship and they want to improve it, because that's, you don't talk to a stranger like that. That's just, yeah. I guess unless you have amazing rapport from right away, but it's, yeah. I feel right, and her pointing out, do you know how long years feel like? Because there's that thing about, well, for 3 years she's not going to be able to move. She's going to have to stay with this family. And they point out, which I really appreciate, that is something I'm seeing more in recent Hollywood productions compared to 80s and 90s, for example, is being acknowledged. Hey, not all foster families are terrible. Like, when Grace says you had a roof over your head, you had a foster family who were stable and who cared about you, Faith does not deny that. She just says that there were other issues. She still felt abandoned. This was also something I quite appreciated about the Shazam movies, for example. Whereas, before you'd have Terminator 2 and let's see, what was that other one? You know what? Thinking about it, wasn't Free Willy a decent enough positive representation? It was kind of just saying that, a lot of young people would still be upset despite having good foster. But yeah, I'm not the first person to point out, why the fuck did Todd and Janelle adopt? They don't even seem happy with each other. They don't seem to want John at all. And it is this weird idea. I don't know why some people, including some who make movies and shows and such, think that that's like, listen, I'm not saying that everyone who adopts is great, but yeah, it feels really weird. Like that's the thing. Hypothetically, there are people who clearly are not great to be taking care of, foster kids who still do. Yeah, that's frequently like religious, Christian fundamentalists and such. So they're like abusing the kids. I'm not saying everyone of that persuasion does, but when you hear really negative stories about bad foster parents who clearly shouldn't be taking care of kids, yeah, in America it tends to be, conservative Christians who just wanted to preach at someone, and sometimes worse. Cat Black did a story about a white couple who adopted and basically treated as slave labor a non-zero number of black children. Anyway, I feel like that does bring us to the it was so great. The thing about, so they end up, the entire fight against the sword wielder. Love that they put him in a mask, because I didn't need that to be the case in the first, but yeah, for variety's sake, I thought variety's sake, I thought it was great to have one that did, because they did say in the first one, an earlier generation wanted masks, but right now they don't. Well, now that there's multiple families, surely at least one of them wants the mask, But yeah, fantastic fight, and the fucking laundry, like they're throwing literal laundry at him and holding up, and just, I also really appreciate, I wasn't sure if they were gonna, because like I knew that Samara was gonna be put through the ringer again, because it's, after the first movie, they did, with Catherine Newton as well, and she seemed game. Like she did not, at no point did I feel like, oh, this is just maybe not completely comfortable with, because at least some of that stuff seemed like it was actually her. I'm sure some might have been stunt double or something, but like, yeah, and the part where she fucking spits blood in Titus's face, god damn. But yeah, the whole fight and so they end up fucking throwing him in the laundry. Jesus Christ. And turning it on, it's like, he might have a phone though. Okay, let's hit the red button and open it. And I didn't realize that they were gonna splice in footage from fucking RoboCop 1, like, help me! Like, Jesus Christ, that was, oh my god. If Radio Silence wants to keep making movies like this, I will watch them. I can't promise that it'll always be in theaters. I think I missed at least one of the ones they made after. Abigail? Was that what it was called? I'm gonna watch it, I swear. It's just so fucking much to watch in theaters that I don't want to burn out. I don't want to risk at some point feeling like it's a chore going to a movie theater, But yeah, that was fucking amazing. I was not at all expecting that. And then it's like, oh, we got to find the phone. Well, you're doing great. Thanks for helping. And then it's, I mean, maybe it's here if I move the hand, and the hand is also fucked up, and great stuff. I think they did actually do like prosthetic makeup on his face, because there was at least a little bit of movement there. Fantastic stuff. And they find the phone, and then, call 911, and like immediately it's like, that voice though. And then we see it's her, and I love that it has like the fucking vibe of like a prank call, like, shh. Yeah, this is totally 911. Yeah. And the thing about, like, okay, so where should we, we want the cops here, where should we go? And it's like, go to the main gate, and then he goes back to the sisters, and Faith is like, are you sure this is a good idea? And at first we, the audience, are not sure, like, do they not recognize the voice? Because I mean, technically it is that thing of like, I've had phone conversations where at first I didn't recognize the voice of the person on the other end, because I normally talk to them in person, and there's a little distortion there. But then it's revealed later, like, no, they fucking knew. What are you talking about? Of course they knew. They just They wanted the twins to go to near the main gate so that they could, like, fantastic. Oh, yeah, fucking love the part where, so they're hiding from the twins, and Ursula's over there, and it's like, oh shit, we better avoid. And then suddenly into frame walks Titus, like, fantastic. I do not understand people. Yes, apparently they exist, who claim that radio silence don't master tension and suspense. Like, that is such a fantastic, that's exactly how you do that, because you just first see these couple of legs walk into frame, and it's like, shit, and it turns out Ursula knew exactly where the fuck they were, but she was using they were tag teaming. It's a fantastic idea. And he fucks up, as he tends to do, and it was so great, because, like, we were thinking, oh, that, that branch is going to be a weapon, and then they have to abandon it, similar to how in the first one she and we think, oh, she's going to be shooting people with this gun, and then it turns out, oh, the display only, and then this one she does get to shoot, although ultimately I guess she only killed one with the gun, and then she fired a couple of other shots, and then she used it to get through a door, but yeah, it is enough variation on in the first one, because at the same time it's also like, I mean, I don't want a movie of just her going around gunning down people. That would also be really boring. That would get old so fast. The phone thing did also feel a little bit like variation on, is there anything else I can do for you tonight? Go fuck yourself. Which was funnier, but also ultimately, this made, in this, we more see Grace's cleverness. In the first movie it was primarily to show, hey, he's not rich, but he's part of the system, so he fucks over someone else poor, and then has the goal to be like, yeah, okay, dude, you pretty much just signed her fucking death warrant, and you're gonna act offended because she used a harsh language. Like, Jesus Christ. Oh my God. And the sad thing is, that's not that far from the truth. Like, there are people who will do something awful and then complain about, you shouldn't really use language like that. Like, really? I think that might just about cover the, let's see. Yeah, so that covers the woods. Yeah, and that was also clever. Like, we have the thing about, like, we're getting really deep into the woods, and yeah, ultimately it didn't really protect them, And yeah, I think that is when the I think that's when we get to the part where, so they lure the, it was the thing about, like, are you at the gate? We don't see you here. Well, we don't hear a police car. Oh, no, the police car's coming. We're really close to the gate, and then the twins, of course, go, well, okay, I guess we gotta go over there. And then they come up, the sisters come up from behind, really, really clever, and explain that, of course, they knew. And oh shit, I think, fuck, that is after the other scene, isn't it? Okay, yeah, just really, really great. I'm so glad that Sarah Michelle Gellar was in so much of this movie. When she died, I was a tiny bit worried that, like, the movie's gonna lose a lot now, but it was almost over, and I mean, she might be the biggest name, more or less, that dies in this movie. So, it's a big deal that that happens, and it's a change. Titus, like, he keeps saying he can do something. He's gonna do something, and that's what he does. Once he works up the nerve, he kills his own fucking twin because he feels emasculated by her slapping his face and saying that she has to keep him in check. And listen, I think I've already made it clear, I don't approve of domestic abuse, but it doesn't fucking okay murder. And they did a really, really great job there, because, like, I don't know if I would say that I was necessarily feeling sorry for him, but I was thinking, like, wow, he is getting slapped a lot. Like, his family slaps him, but then, and he slaps back at one point, but then that's what he does. So we understand that that's, one thing led to the other, which once again does not excuse the murder. but yeah, it felt earned when we saw him kill, because like without those face slaps, I think I would have been like, the fuck did that come from? That was not set up properly at all. But because we keep seeing him being slapped in the face, it's one of the first things we see of him and of the movie at all. And not, yeah, a little later we see her do it as well. And we do also see, at one point he says, "Stop treating me like a child." And it's true. That is what she's doing, and we find out later it's because she thought that if she did, she could keep him in check, keep him from doing evil, and she just realizes more and more that, yeah, if left unchecked, he would be terrible. That brings us to the scene that I missed. So yeah, they go into the yeah, they're inside, and Sheng shows up again, and I love the thing about, okay, so I am not trying to hurt you. Did you hear that, Faith? The lady with the sword isn't trying to hurt us. And she actually, lowers the sword and everything and explains, if you marry my son sight unseen, it'll be okay, and you have the thing about like, well, it'll be giving up my soul. And I love the part where she like tries to stand in front and she's like, I know you can't kill me. And the let's see, yeah, and the fact that we did already meet him, so it's like, Grace is supposed to marry that little shit. God damn. And Faith, for a while, it's like, why didn't you just do it? And Grace points out, yeah, I would be selling my soul. And, that is a fate worse than death. And I really do appreciate, like, these two movies do not mince words. Like, they are not okay with rich people. That is not a thing. That is, yeah, it really is. I'm impressed by how well they managed to capture, there is a substantial animosity towards rich people right now. And once again, I'm not saying that we should engage in any violence against them, but this, I don't know, hopefully this can convince even more people that the rich are the ones causing these problems. And if enough stand together against them, if we fight nonviolently hard enough, we can wrestle power back away from them. They weren't, it's not natural for any one or any such small group of people to have this much power over all the rest of us. That is something, power was ceded. Now, let's see. But yeah, when that scene happened, like, I didn't realize that there was gonna be a marriage, that Grace was gonna marry one of these rich people later. I thought that it was just like the let's see. It's interesting to have one that is not trying to kill her, and the wonderful thing of the, oh my god, the part where so yeah, the sword ends up being, they're fighting, they're struggling over it, and then the sword goes inside and then there's, oh no, and explodes in blood right onto them, and then everyone like ducks, and he's like, why is everyone looking at me? Just wonderful. And at least one of the rich people got like covered in. I also love the part with like, about to text, and then the lawyer's like, are you sure you want to do that? Imagine having to be told, like, you've just been told that there would be horrible consequences if you engage in this, and they're still trying to do it. They need, Elijah Wood over their shoulder whispering, don't fucking do it, man. Fucking rich people. I'm sorry, I don't know why I try to do her voice and it ends up sounding kind of British, which she doesn't really sound British in these. I appreciate in real life she's Australian, but I don't know. I just can't quite do that line without making it British. I'm very impressed by her American accent. Like, I've heard a little bit of like interview, and sounds so different in her native accent. What's the other thing about that scene? So yeah, and then picking up the sword was really cool. It's like, well, no sense letting this thing go to waste. And let's see. I feel like I love the little thing of like, well, the other one's dead, so I guess you can take over. And then that asshole just goes like, how about her? She could do, and she's just like, what the fuck, and she just drives, and it's like, oh, she's gonna run over. Oh no, she rammed the gate, and she is driving out of there. Which also, at the time when we see that scene, we're just fucking laughing our asses off. But then later, that is the gate that the sisters leave through, and they didn't have a chance in the interim to do so. Because it is like, well, who's gonna let them out? Like, is the lawyer gonna? I guess hypothetically he could, but yeah. But let's see, yeah. So they the two sets of siblings fight, and let's see. Yeah, Titus also starts to get completely out of control when he fights against Faith, because we can appreciate, well, if he can like get her to cry out for grace, which, I mean, I think you should probably just say grace. I think it's a little rude, just people are about to eat to cry grace, but okay. That could maybe try, call to grace. I know this hurts. Call to grace now. But he's like beating her, and it's like, this is just his ego. Like, he can't control himself because he feels like, these women have so much power over me. And that's incel shit. And I feel like, does that pretty much? Yeah, and so we get Alex X has to take over because her father is dead, and she eagerly does it, and then we see she's wearing the wedding dress, and one of the characters even says, well, that's not sad at all. And this means that not only does she want to wear it during this, she brought it for this exact purpose. She has saved the wedding dress, and is it also just felt fucked up when she's giving this big monologue to Grace, and Grace is like, I don't even know who you are, just like, once again, because of how gendered it is, the fact that, because you're not going to see them do this with a male character, and it's just, listen, a number of women care deeply about their wedding day. Part of that is that there is so much pressure on a woman to get married, do so young, get it right in one. You're not allowed to divorce. If you remarry, there's something wrong. There's misogynists who think that somehow if a woman has sex with more than one man, that's like this catastrophe for her, not for him. For him, it's like amazing. What a legend. So it's like, so you're admitting that the thing you think makes men better makes women worse, and you think you're the good guys and women should trust you. Like, you see how illogical that is, and they have the goal to then turn around and say, oh, women are so irrational for not wanting to be around you. I think that is specifically a major sign that they understand the world much better than you do. But for a very long time, and to an extent still today, marriage was basically the only way for a woman to have financial stability, because men wouldn't allow them to work. And so, of course, they're gonna be really anxious and, think a lot about their wedding day, because that is the one chance that supposedly that they get under, patriarchy, because of misogynists. That's the one chance they have to be sure that they can live a long, happy, healthy life. And somehow they're not supposed to think that that's super important, but men are awesome for obsessing over. Like, I used to know a guy, the one thing he cared about was like, that one classmate of ours, I bet he could beat up any guy in school. And it's like, so fucking what? He's not like, listen, If the guy was in MMA or something and was entering a fighting tournament, I could understand caring about that. But we were fucking teenage guys in high school, and it's like, that's what you care about? If he gets in a fight with the wrong person at the wrong time, he's going to throw his entire future away. And that's better than studying and trying to make sure that we have a chance to make it. Like, just moving on. Let's see. I guess that does get us to the... Yeah, so there's a lot I love about once the two, Grace and Alex X are in the same room, because, you've got the pepper spray, which, once again, set up and payoff. At the time, I wasn't necessarily thinking much of it, but yeah, just these little, so she shows up, and, first Grace pepper sprays her right in the face, and then it gets turned on her, and so they're both like struggling around. That was fucking funny, and not, especially gender is just, they look fucking ridiculous, and then one of them like hits the music thing. I forget the fuck, was it a jukebox or something, and fucking total eclipse of the heart. And at one point, like, you've got Faith and the on screen, and we hear the music, and it's sort of diegetic, I guess, even though later it doesn't sound quite as loud in that same location. Or was it further away? Anyway, but you have the thing about I really need you tonight, I think, is the line, because Faith does need Grace right now, and the I feel like is the... But yeah, so many great little moments in the fight. I liked her picking up the fucking keyboard, screaming, and right to the fucking face. Jesus Christ. And, the part where she's like, I know where you are, and like attacks, and it's the fucking standee of the bride. Yeah. And the part with the cake, and just, oh my God, it's so fucking funny. And right, oh God, the part where, I looked for you for the wedding. I wouldn't have come. I wouldn't have worn one of those ridiculous dresses for you. You know what? I was right to leave you, and I'm sorry you found me. And just like, oh my God. And I appreciate, at that point, Faith leaves. Because, you know what? I thought that maybe it would be good for me to be graceful, but you are going to be faithless. And yeah, because you should not be around someone who talks to you like that. Pretty much, like, yeah. And I really appreciate that she has enough self-respect to know that. And, of course, immediately it's like, oh, we understand why Grace said that, but she also obviously feels bad. And it is that thing of, like, because she feels like, they have to fight so hard. I mean, even before this, obviously right now they do. And the fact that Faith doesn't think things through more than she does, it really bothers Grace, and that again, like, capitalism, patriarchy, this idea that, like, why aren't you better? They put us through all this shit, and, we both should be great because, supposedly it just builds character. Yeah, sometimes, and sometimes it fucking destroys people. Like, there is no reason for things to be as hard as they are under capitalism for the poor, especially considering how unbelievably rich they are. Like, okay, so I know shouldn't recommend a super fucking old video. I don't care right now. I recently rewatched it. Years ago, College Humor made a video. I believe it's called something like "If I Had the Money Jeff Bezos Did," and it literally just, throughout the entire song, several minutes, just them saying, hey, here's what that money could be spent on, and he's only gotten richer in the years since. And spoiler alert, he has not done the fucking things that the song mentions, and it really helps put it into perspective, because otherwise it is essentially impossible for us to fully understand, just, yeah. Let's see. I feel like that. Right. So yeah, the fight near the gate was also, with so yeah, it's pointed out in IMDb trivia as well. Yeah. Sarah Michelle Gellar with, like, trying to stab someone in the chest with yeah, like Buffy. And that was also great. Another great scream from Samara Weaving, and the part where she's pulling it out, like, oh, that was one of the best. Just gnarly, nasty, violent effects. I really appreciated how much we saw it move and how deep it went. Like, it went all the way fucking through, And I think that does. There's at least one more thing that I really want to make sure to say. I guess that is when we get the yeah. So Grace is we have so yeah, Faith is taken, and you have the thing about, like, okay, come to the lobby, and yeah, she gets the gun from the locker, which was also a clever way to do that. Obviously there would be guns there, and it's this thing of, I favor gun control. Turns out, so does this movie, because yeah, they were shot by guns that they made sure was on the premise. I mean, okay, I appreciate that Alex X wasn't specifically, but she as a rich person probably wants bodyguards around her, and yeah, that's why there's guns there. And that was also genuinely funny. And I knew when I saw the trailer I was gonna, looking forward to that. Ready for round two? Yup. And she just shoots her. Jesus fucking Christ. And I appreciate that the trailer didn't give away, because I was thinking, like, is that really going to work, or is there going to be something to prevent her or something? But yeah, and I appreciated that she must have watched Zombieland, because that was like, was that a double tap? She certainly kept shooting until she was sure. And let's see, there was definitely at least one more thing that I really wanted to make sure to say at this point. Yeah, so yeah, she shoots her way through she shoots through the locks. I love the cousin, Kip or something. I don't know why that made me think of Kip Pardue. Maybe because in Rules of Attraction, he plays a asshole as well. Wonderfully, I might add. In general, that movie is so full to the brim of just the absolute worst fucking people. God, I gotta sit down and watch it again. It's yeah. But let's see. So I mean, if we're counting the times I watched it with commentary tracks, it is 24 by now, total viewings of it. So there you go. You can probably tell I like that movie. Anyway, yeah, and by the end of destroying all the locks to get in, she's out of bullets, or shells or whatever the fuck. And yeah, she managed to hide inside the meat locker or whatever it is, and blocks the door. And that is genuinely clever, because, like, they need, because yeah, Titus is like, well, shit, I mean, how else are we gonna get out of there before dawn? Because, like, yeah, I mean, the glass is too thick, and the door, and she blocked it with metal, and it's a metal door. Like, yeah, it would take a long ass time to get through that thing, like, even with fucking power tools. Everything is controlled from within that chamber. That's why the doors are so thick. Oh, really? And the let's see, yeah, she says, I'll come out right now if you marry me. And then points out, Cheng said there was a loophole, and they look at the lawyer, and he's like, yeah. And it is such a great little, because, like, he's like, well, I didn't think any of you wanted to fucking marry her. I assumed you wanted to kill her. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? I'm sorry. Why did I get out of bed this morning if I'm not here to ensure that you are able to murder an innocent woman for power? Like, you know what? You do you. I'll officiate the fucking wedding. Like, just maybe tomorrow will be better. And the let's see. I guess that does pretty much. Oh shit! I think I missed the. Yeah, that was also great. The part where that was also with the shotgun. Yeah, the shit. A little kid comes in. The one who didn't explode into blood. After mom and the sword and all. Yeah, he runs in, fucking dual wielding these fully automatic handguns, and I'm like, okay, I think maybe this little brat has watched too much John Woo. If I thought such a thing were possible, I should watch more John Woo. God damn, it's been forever since yeah. I have done at least a few videos on his movies. Anyway, I feel like that pretty much covers. Let's see, there's yeah, and I love the thing about, well, I mean, I guess we could make wedding guests out of the coronation guests. That could work, and because it's satanic, so they're in black and the black veil, as if she's going to a fucking funeral instead. Which I guess, in a manner of speaking, she is. And I really appreciated that now Faith does get it. She doesn't want her selling her soul, and she's willing to die to protect her, and Grace is refusing to leave her behind, and she's self-sacrificing, which also goes a long way to show, hey, she really does care. Like, this is not something she would just do on a whim. And yeah, the first movie opens with a wedding. This one ends with one, and in both cases, the movie also ends with her throwing a ring away, and people exploding in blood and such because of Ladomas. Sorry, not LaBelle. Jesus. And I guess that does pretty much get us to the yeah, and also just they're rich, so they can arrange a wedding within hours. And yeah, I really appreciated Ursula coming up to Grace and saying, hey, we gotta really control him, like he's out of control. And he refuses to go to the store to buy more. And yeah, just the reveal that he's there. And for a movie that so much of the time makes us laugh, no one in the theater laughed when he showed up and he started attacking her. Like, that was genuinely upsetting, even though so much of the violence in the movie makes us laugh. Like, we laughed our asses off during Alex X fighting Grace, with both of them having their eyes fucked up by the pepper spray. I think that does cover the but yeah, I guess, did I talk enough about, so you have that one guy who's like, well, I'll give everything to my wife, then she has to kill Grace. He's literally, let's see, I think I already said that he wants the power and wealth, but he does not want any responsibility. But he also just throws his wife under the bus. Like, supposedly he loves her, but this is what he does when he immediately just, sacrifices her. And let's see, I feel like there's at least one more thing that I really wanted to say. What on earth was the yeah, I think that does bring us to have the wedding. And yeah, and I also appreciate, I mean, technically this movie started with, like, they almost went through with the wedding, and then it was interrupted by the twins. But the wedding did not involve Grace, and especially once she started swearing like a sailor. I'm kidding. I think I've made it pretty clear I don't think swearing is bad. It's again one of those things. I've noticed a number of conservatives, like, they think that white men should be allowed to use the N-word, but they don't think that anyone should be allowed to say fuck. Like, really? You don't understand. I mean, obviously, a lot of them do. They just like the idea of having some power over, black people. That's all it is, and it's a zero-sum game for them. They don't appreciate that, like, when things are made better for black people, it gets better for others. And I'm not saying that that's the only reason to help ethnic and racial minorities, but if your life is bad and you can find at least one person who has a different ethnicity or race than you that seems to have it better, it's not their fault that your life is bad unless that person is like ridiculously rich. Like, obviously, rich people, even the ones who are not white, can also be just the absolute worst. I guess that does. Yeah, I also thought they did a good job on how the ceremony, every so often there's a Hail Satan. Can I get a Hail Satan? And, some of the things they say are just so fucked up. And yeah, the thing about, like, what was it? You belong to each other. You are of one, or something like that, which, like, oh yeah, so, that helps explain why she can get away with killing him. And she says, you can get away with killing family. You taught me that. She's literally saying, if you hadn't killed your sister in front of me, I wouldn't be killing you right now. And let's see. Yeah, that was just such a great. And am I remembering right? Did she specifically stab him many, many times to death with the fucking blood pen? That just, yeah, that was such a great. Yeah. That was also so in order to get married by a Satanist in this movie's universe, you also have to choose which faction you belong to in the Divergent universe. Okay, so each their own, I guess. And I feel like that brings us to the... Yeah, and then she's like, so I can do anything now. You are in my control. Kneel. And I love that the fucking goat does it. It actually does it, I think, before anyone else. It's just like, oh, this is the part where I kneel. Okay. And yeah, they all do. And she's like, so my first act is to remove myself from the council. And the lawyer's just like, yeah, I mean, we didn't think anyone would, so we don't have any rules against it. And, sometimes I don't know if... I guess I'll just say that as far as... so yeah, she takes off the ring of power and throws it into a hole, and I'm just saying this is gonna be a strike in the record for Elijah Wood. Like, gonna have to be more careful about what happens to the rings. But yeah, and it's such a clever... and the fact that he's the one who ends up, in the first movie she was the one who in the pit of skeletons and death, and now he's the one who ends up down there by her doing. And all of them jump in because it's like, well, there's 3 minutes left. If none of you are wearing that ring, all of you die. And if they could just agree, hey, listen, just sorry, fucked with my light accidentally. If one of you can just wear the ring, the rest of us, we'll all live. We just have to let one person do it, and the lawyer even says, I mean, I guess hypothetically anyone could. So yeah, Pernilla jumps in as well, and yeah, considering that the first one had, like, I don't know, half a dozen people explode into blood, for the second one to top it, of course they're gonna go. I mean, I don't know, it's at least a couple dozen, right, who jump in, and also just seeing them all jump in. Like, I'm sorry, I fucking love this ending. As I said in the review, it's just so glorious watching all this. Yeah. because they wouldn't be in this situation if they hadn't agreed to this. You know, they are ridiculously wealthy, but they made a pact with the devil. And I think that does... Yeah, I really appreciated that. So yeah, by the end, you know, the whole marriage thing, when Grace suggests it, she is taking a book out of the page of faith. Other way around, a page out of the book of faith. She's taking a leap of belief, and you know, jumping into things the way faith has been shown to do. And now Faith is the one saying, you know, Faith takes some advice from Grace and says, no, you have to think this through. You can't do this. And by the end, you know, because remember, when she said that she wanted to marry, or when she said that if Titus married her, she would come out, wherever she is, that was before Titus killed Ursula. So she did not know. She didn't have a plan at the time, but it worked out, just as it did with the leaves, which was also a faith idea, you know. And this one wasn't Faith's idea specifically, although, yeah, I mean, earlier she was in favor of it, in support of it. So yeah. I think that does pretty much cover... Yeah, it was also very funny there at the end when she's like, so, you're going to get married again this week later? Too soon. And they even saved the goat, which, I mean, if it really is the greatest of all time, I appreciate that. And I also did like that, you know, that she said, like, so I would spend the rest of my life killing people, slaughtering goats. And yeah, and the point, again, you know, we have this thing of like, well, maybe you could change it from the inside. And like in both of these movies, clearly, like, no, you know, no one should be rich. You know, it's very important to note that, you know, every so often when we leftists say, because it is essentially a slogan, and some people don't seem to understand it, some people don't want to understand it, but there is a slogan that goes, rich people shouldn't exist. And that does not mean that we are calling for violence against rich people, although I appreciate some of them would say that it's violence, that we, you know, take at least some of the money that they don't even fucking need. It's just there so they can brag about how rich they are whilst people are dying because they don't have money enough. When we say rich people shouldn't exist, what we mean is no one person should have that much money. We're not talking about harming the people who currently do. We're talking about taxing them so that that money gets out to the people who actually need it, for whom it is life and death. And I'm just real quick going to mentally fast forward because I'm pretty much ready to wrap this up. Let's see, was there one? I guess I'll just briefly note. So Kevin Durand was the one. I already knew because I watched the Tyler Calvert video before watching the movie. I already knew that David Cronenberg was not going to be in it much. I did think that, and now I forgot his name. Didn't I just say it? The first guy who explodes into blood in the hospital. I thought that actor would be in more of the movie because I'm quite a fan of his. I wonder, did he come on because of Cronenberg or vice versa? Because they did work together. Anyway, but yeah, I think that pretty much covers... Right, and like the first movie, there at the end, at least one of the people who explodes into blood is a child, but it does happen off screen. And I also thought it was exactly right to show the blood come up from the hole instead of showing the people exploding into blood. That would have been way too much. Actually might have gotten it an NC-17 or even X rating, but yeah, we see a couple of blood explosions, and it's like, I guess that's it. And the, you know, massive, yeah. And the I feel like, right, it was so sweet that at the end with, like, you know, I missed you. You know, I love you. I love you too. We need more of people just saying, you know, yeah, saying that they love the person they love. we gotta normalize it. There's way too many people who feel uncomfortable about saying that. And listen, of course, I'm not saying, like, if you're with someone and you're not sure they're okay with you feeling that way, maybe don't say it. Maybe try to approach it in a way that doesn't make them feel uncomfortable. But yeah, like siblings, it's good for them to love each other, you know. And it would have felt wrong if that had happened at the start of the movie. But yeah, here at the end, you know, they both say it, and then it's like, you know, the thing with, you know, missing each other, and then one is like, well, you're not gonna miss me ever again because you're gonna get sick of me. Promise. That was genuinely sweet. And yeah, I guess they're gonna find out something to do with the goat. Um, I don't know. I mean, I just hope that they are going to take it back to its home, because I'm sorry, but thinking about it, thinking, you know, how long has it been away from the family? Like, its kids must be worried sick.